What is up, everybody? Happy Friday. Welcome to this installment of the DADS, not always on wrestling, here on the Jeff Meacham Network. And yes, I know what shirt I'm wearing. It's late June. Both teams are out. Kiss my ass. I am, of course, West Coast Professor Jeff Meacham. He is the Renegade JJ Williams. Today, my friends, today, I only would wear this shirt for one other reason besides celebrating the actual franchise, which if I'm celebrating the hockey franchise, there's definitely a few spots on the ground where hell is definitely frozen over. You might want to sprinkle a salt so you don't slip and break your ass. Today's topic is one of those reasons. It is our opinion, of course. And as we always say on this show, our opinions are #subjective. But these are the movies that we feel here on this show that are the best live-action movies under the Walt Disney Motion Picture Studios umbrella. Uncle Jay, what does that mean? What's he talking about?
Well, what we are talking about are films not only made, produced, released by Walt Disney Pictures, Pirates of the Caribbean, Swiss Family Robinson, The Mighty Ducks, Old Yeller, etc. But we're talking about films that are made and produced in the sub-companies, the subsidiaries, that Disney is also either owns or very prominently has their hands in the cookie jar for. So we're talking companies like Touchstone Pictures. We're talking Hollywood Pictures. Miramax, which Disney bought in 1993 and owned until 2010, I want to say. So anything that came out during that time frame, Disney had a little piece of the pie for. We're not talking necessarily about companies that Disney acquired and then got their catalog as a result. So we're not going to really touch on 20th Century Fox and the original or prequel Star Wars series or the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which is now something that Disney owns, making Frankenfurter a queen for Disney.
He is a Disney queen, for sure.
But things like The Force Awakens, which were produced under the Disney umbrella since its acquisition of Lucasfilm and the Star Wars franchise, those type of movies are up for grabs. And why are we doing this in June, you may ask? Well, over on my side of things, the Casa D18 Studios channel, all of this month, I'm taking a look at the Disney animated classics, the Snow White lineage, if you will.
Yes.
Which we discussed last November.
Right.
Did our top 10 for.
Yes.
So while I am over on my channel talking about those movies in depth, daily, 3 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Eastern time, we're over here today to talk about the live action films.
So basically what we're saying is, if you've done your due diligence with your proper viewing habits, you've already just finished JJ's day 25 of his Disney animated classics countdown, and now you're here. It's about 7:05. You're doing the DADS thing, and we love you for it here on a Friday. But there's a minor, just a little caveat, a little difference today here on the DADS, because usually if it's a non-wrestling week, I will start with my list, and Uncle Jay here will bring it home. However, somebody over here is being Mr. Indecisive this week and can't narrow the entire damn thing down to just 10. So he asked very graciously, and being the good-hearted and lack of soulless ginger I am, I said, go for it, dude. He's got 2 top 10s. One of which being Walt Disney Pictures, the big one we saw as a kid where it's the big, booming music, and the castle appears and the whole thing. And they're also, he's starting with, which we're going to throw to right now, is his top 10 of the subsidiaries, of all the movies that don't fall under that magical castle umbrella. So with that being said, now that I've given him a major ration of shit and done 3 friggin' takes on it, Uncle Jay, take it away.
Well, thank you, sir. Being a movie guy like I am, most everybody out here knows me by now. There's two things you can look to me for: music and movies.
Oh yeah.
And being a movie guy like I am, there's just so many great Walt Disney pictures that I've seen, that I love, that I repeat view, that I didn't feel that it would be fair to throw a bunch of the subsidiaries in there and then delete those. Like, I had 20 Walt Disney films on their own. And then when I went through the subsidiaries, I had almost another 15. And you want me to do 10 and be fair? So, yes, I asked Jeff if he would allow me this, and he so graciously did. So, if you don't want to hear me talk for so long, you can probably fast forward to about the 45-minute mark when Jeff will take over.
And
Otherwise, grab yourself your popcorn, the jujubes, your plate of nachos, and a nice, tasty, refreshing beverage, and saddle up, folks, because my number 10 for the subsidiaries comes to us from Touchstone Pictures, Adventures in Babysitting.
And for the record, before he goes on, if you don't know what jujubes are, you are too young for the room. Good night. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Thanks. Okay, anyway.
But Adventures in Babysitting, man, like Keith Coogan, Elizabeth Shue, there's so much that can be said about this film. Like, from the very, very opening scene of Elizabeth Shue dancing around her bedroom to "And Then He Kissed Me," all the way up until the very, very end. This is a funny, very adult, but still kid-friendly, romped through the big city. And in a show-stealing, scene-stealing performance, a very young Vincent D'Onofrio,
Yes.
as quote-unquote Thor, the automaton.
Right.
I swear to God, Jeff, for years I refused to watch Chris Hemsworth Thor, the first movie, because this film was all the origin story I needed of Thor.
Right, exactly. Damn it.
I didn't need to see the son of Odin, the brother of Loki. Nah, that motherfucker's a freaking mechanic in New York City, and there's our one. Oh well.
Yes, exactly. Damn it.
I just adore that film, though. It's definitely one of those, when I was a wee little lad, about 10, 11 years old, based on its release date.
Right.
I just watched the hell out of this movie, and I still do. It's up here in my collection. Like, I just have to own it.
Now, with it being Touchstone and not Disney proper, did it come in a clamshell VHS? That's the question.
No.
Okay.
Standard VHS, slide out the bottom.
If you don't know what a clamshell VHS case is, you sure as shit are too young for this room. Get the hell on out of here and go do a Google search, bitch. Please do that. Thank you. Okay, very good.
Number 9 on my list also comes from Touchstone Pictures.
Yeah, baby.
Nicolas Cage, John Malkovich, John Cusack, Con Air.
Yes, sir.
Put the bunny back in the box.
All you gotta do is put the bunny back in the box. Damn it. Oh, man.
In my humble opinion, and I may catch some crap for this, but in my humble opinion, this is Nick Cage at his best.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And the cast is just phenomenal. I mean, aside from the 3 that I mentioned,
Right.
You've got Ving Rhames. You've got Steve Buscemi. You've got Micheletti Williamson.
Yep.
You know, you've got so many great actors in this film. The soundtrack, Trisha Yearwood's "How Do I Live?"
Oh, Rory.
Iconic.
Now, granted,
Iconic.
that was Leanne's song first, Leanne Rimes' song for the, but
it was supposed to be Leanne's on the soundtrack, but the soundtrack company felt that she was a little bit too young to be singing that song.
Yeah.
So they gave the song to Trisha for the film, and Leanne went ahead and released her own version of it independently, which is amazing too.
Right, and
I'm definitely not taking anything away from Leanne Rimes' version.
So they both hit out of
getting
the park.
to hear Trisha do it live multiple times.
Great.
Just a great film.
It is.
Soundtrack, story, everything all around. John Malkovich is just a dastardly son of a bitch.
Right.
As Cyrus the Virus.
It's so funny when I go back and watch this film and then go back and watch late ECW with Don Callis having the exact same character name. I go, yeah, like Malkovich, I could, go grab a beer with or whatever. Don, I just want to punch in his face. Like, it's like, yeah.
And totally Steve Buscemi as the creepy dude.
Oh,
I forget his character name. I want to say it was Galen Green.
Something like that. Yeah, oh God, just makes your skin crawl.
Yeah. First of all, Steve Buscemi is creepy without makeup. Like, you just look at him and you're like, ooh, okay, dude. Yeah. It's like Weird Al says about Willem Dafoe in Ode to Superhero, this song about Spider-Man.
Yes.
He's wearing that dumb Power Ranger mask, but he's scarier without it on.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of the same, cookie cutter mold there for Buscemi. He is just a creepy looking dude.
Yeah.
Known child molester, child rapist throughout the movie.
Right.
And you see him meet the little girl. And you see him sitting with her having the tea party. Like, and then it cuts and the little girl is gone. And you're like, no! And then you see the little girl waving at the plane as it flies off, and you're like, oh, Jesus Christ.
Right?
He could be redeemed.
Yeah.
He has been redeemed.
Yeah.
So great.
And Steve has a line in the movie, which I'll get to because full disclosure, it's on my countdown too. So Steve has a line in the movie, and we'll get there. But yeah, whew.
Number 8 on my list is the first one from Miramax, and I defy anybody to find me a more iconic Miramax film than this, Pulp Fiction. Now, I have a couple other entries from Miramax on my list that I just like a little bit more. But as far as iconic stature, this was Tarantino's Welcome to the Dance. Reservoir Dogs was good. That was the, walk into the party, my jam comes on. This was, pun intended, I just won the dance contest, bitch. Give me my prize.
Exactly.
This movie was so great, it relaunched Travolta's career.
Right?
Which had been seriously floundering in the 6 to 8 years prior.
Right.
Yes, he had minor hits with Look Who's Talking and Look Who's Talking 2.
Right.
But he was far removed from Grease, Saturday Night Fever, Urban Cowboy.
Yeah.
And he went on a nice little run after this for a couple of years before he made Battlefield Earth, and we don't talk about that movie. But Samuel L. Jackson, his first really big, like, you took notice of him in this film.
Right.
He had been a character actor in a few movies prior, but this was his big coming out party as well. We were introduced to him, and you know what? Screw it. We're going to get 2 on this one. This movie, you took note of him as a bad motherfucker.
Yep.
That was what was on his wallet.
Yeah.
And he has been one ever since.
Oh, yeah.
Again, iconic soundtrack. Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon. You know, You Never Can Tell, Chuck Berry.
Right.
Miserlou, Dick Dale. Such an iconic soundtrack. Tarantino knows how to set the mood with a song. Number 7 on my list, we go back to Touchstone.
Oh, yeah.
And a property that actually had representation in the original Magic Kingdom for a short time the summer of its release.
Yep.
Warren Beatty, Madonna, Al Pacino, Charlie Korsmo, Dick Tracy. And again, iconic stature. Warren Beatty owned the rights to this film.
Nice.
That was how much he believed in it and wanted to do it.
Hell yeah, dude.
He personally acquired the rights to it.
Nice.
And it was just a matter of who can I get to make it?
Right.
And the imagery, everything about it, it just was perfect at the time for Disney because they were kind of an in-between phase anyways. You know, they had Roger Rabbit, they had Little Mermaid, but were those going to be one and dones? We didn't know the effect that those movies were going to have on the Disney company at the time.
Right.
So they went with it, and man, Dick Tracy is so good.
Yes, very much so.
Some people may say it's so bad it's good, but
Oh,
either way, you're acknowledging that it's good.
Right.
Dick Van Dyke in a brief role. Gotta love Dick Van Dyke, and that was around the time I believe that he was doing Diagnosis Murder.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but Madonna at the top of her game at the time.
Yeah.
Only outdid herself a couple years later with A League of Their Own.
Right. Yep. Put it this way,
that was
Jay.
Madonna acting.
Right.
This was Madonna basically playing Madonna.
Right. Exactly. So just help me out here because I'm having trouble off the top of my head. This came out in 1990, right?
Yeah, give or take.
Okay, so for not being very, I mean, it's still got kid-friendly quality to it, and a lot of the content is somewhat kid-friendly. I actually forced my folks to take me to see this. Like, that's how much I love Dick Tracy. And they were both like, maybe. There's a lot of stuff in here that a 7-year-old should not be seeing. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Yeah. But at the same time, you've got little, I forget how to say his last name, Charlie.
I want to say it's Korsmo.
We saw him a year later in another very career-defining role. He was Peter Pan's son in Hook, right?
Believe so, yeah. So
that's a hell of a 2-year run for a kid, man, to be in Dick Tracy and a Peter Pan sequel. That's pretty decent money for that kid. I'm not gonna lie. So I enjoy it. It's on my list, but I do enjoy this movie very, very much, and I can definitely, if I ever, it's on Disney Plus yet, is it?
I believe it is.
Well, if it is, I'm watching it tonight. Hell with it. Because I haven't seen it in so long. I don't think I've seen it since it came out. I don't think we ever owned if we owned a VHS of it, it's sure as hell is gone now, but I never owned a DVD or Blu-ray, that's for sure. So
yeah, we owned it on VHS, my dad and I, back in the day. No clamshell.
Right.
Again, slide out copy.
Right.
And I do have it on DVD over here in my collection.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those things where it wasn't a urgency to own it because I didn't recall how much I liked it until I read through the synopsis again, and just it's like, man, this is too good for me not to be owning. That's ridiculous. By the way, Steve Buscemi's character name is indeed Garland Green. So there you go.
There we go. Number 6 on my list comes from us again from Miramax.
Yes.
And I adore this film to death. It is quite possibly one of my favorite romantic comedies. And it's almost an anti-romantic comedy in of the fact that the guy and the girl do not end up together in the end. Most romantic comedies follow the same formula. Boy meets girl, boy and girl get together. Somewhere along the line, a fight ensues and the two break up, and then they realize how much better they were together and they get back together before the end of the film. This film, boy meets girl, boy and girl get together, boy and girl have insanely comical fight.
Yes.
In the middle of a hockey game, no less.
Yes.
And boy and girl do come together at the end, but they kind of realize that they weren't meant to be together.
Right.
But they appreciate what they had while they had it. Chasing Amy. You know, around the time that Matt Damon was making Good Will Hunting, and granted, Affleck was in that as well, but Affleck's character was a lot smaller than Damon's character because Damon was Will Hunting.
Right.
But around the same time, Affleck was making this movie with his buddy Kevin Smith.
Yes.
You know, a relationship that has resulted in a number of movie appearances for Affleck in Smith movies. Going back to Mallrats, this, Dogma, Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back, Jersey Girl, Clerks 2, Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. But this was the movie that made a lot of people look at Affleck as a leading man type. Because shortly after this, there was Armageddon. Shortly after Armageddon, there was Pearl Harbor. This was the movie that really brought him to the forefront as far as a leading man type.
Definitely.
Then you got Jason Lee, you got Joey Lauren Adams, Jason Mewes and Kevin Smith, of course, as the stoner duo Jay and Silent Bob, respectively. This film is just so fun. And the scene towards the beginning of the film with the gay African-American character of Hooper X giving his take on the Star Wars saga to this day is still my favorite breakdown explanation of the saga. And if you've never heard it, it is on YouTube. Pause this video, open up another tab, look up Hooper X Star Wars, and watch that entire speech, because it is just comedy gold about how even in a galaxy far, far away, they still trying to hold the black man down.
I know. It's so bad. Oh, it's so bad.
Number 5 on my list. We're at the halfway mark. Another film from Touchstone Pictures. 10 Things I Hate About You. Julia Stiles and the late Heath Ledger, once again in the role that really made people start taking notice of him, because dare I say he would not have gotten Brokeback Mountain or The Joker had it not been for his turns in this and The Patriot, respectively.
Right.
And this was the film that introduced everybody to Heath Ledger. And Julia Stiles, I just adore her.
How can you not?
She is so good, such a good actress. So many of her movies, Save the Last Dance, Oh, the modern day version of Othello, so good. And to this day, whenever the beat drops on Notorious B.I.G.'s Hypnotize, I think of the scene with her dancing on the top of the table in this film. And likewise, whenever I hear Can't Take My Eyes Off You, regardless of who is singing it, I think of Heath strutting through the bleachers on the football field, singing it from this film. You know, maybe that's a future show topic we can dive into, Hef. Top 10 music moments from non-musical movies.
Oh. I like that. See, for me, Can't take my eyes off you. I, of course,
I
think of
know.
Frankie, and by proxy, I think of Frankie singing it on Full House. First thing comes to my mind. So that's
I know you and your Frankie Valli
Oh yes,
obsession. But
yes.
for me, it's this film.
Oh yeah.
Number 4 might surprise some people, but if you really know me, it should be no surprise whatsoever. The first entry to come to the list from Hollywood Pictures, a man who was at the top of his game, Pauly Shore, and a man who would be introduced to us through this film, Brendan Fraser, along with Sean Astin, who for whatever reason they edited out of this photo when they made the streaming image. And he's the damn kid that finds Brendan Fraser's link. So, he's pretty integral in the story. I'm just saying.
Yeah, right. Seriously.
Only one of these 3 went on to become a Hobbit. I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, Pauly's kind of a Hobbit in of itself. That's a whole other story.
Yeah. But Encino Man, dude, like, during a time when Bill and Ted, Wayne and Garth were still very much ruling the scene and popular, there was Pauly Shore on MTV with
Right.
Totally Pauly, and he was so funny. His show got such great ratings that they gave him some movies. This was the first one. Honestly, it was between this and Son-in-Law for me because I adore Son-in-Law also. Son-in-Law was the first taste we got of Tiffany Amber Thiessen as a bad girl before she went to 90210.
Yep.
But it was between those 2 for me, and I was just like, even though Son-in-Law has Tiffany Amber Thiessen, has the kid that played Ham in The Sandlot, even though it has Pauly Shore singing John Denver's Thank God I'm a Country Boy, this is the one that launched him into that proverbial sphere for the time that it lasted. Now, granted, it was very much a shooting star situation because that burned out quick.
Oh, yeah.
But Encino Man, Son-in-Law, In the Army Now, Biodome, I want to say the other one was Jury Duty.
Sounds
Don't
right.
quote me on that. Pauly Shore in the 90s at his best.
Yeah.
And to this day, granted this doesn't fit in on the list, but to this day, if I ever am caught watching The Wash with Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg, the modern day take a car wash, there is a scene where a car is brought into the car wash and Pauly Shore is tied up and bound in the trunk of a car. I fall out laughing every time.
Oh, yeah. Without
because
question.
y'all know that is what people wanted to do to this MFer during the 90s. He was so over animated that you either loved him or hate him. And there were quite a few on both sides of the fence.
Yes. Complete random side note. You made me think when you mentioned Tiffany. I actually just watched the entire Saved by the Bell run on Peacock recently. The series, the college years, and then the wedding. I can't watch the wedding now without thinking of Tiffany as Valerie because she's got that shortcut in the wedding. And I go, dude, she's like bailing on Zach and going over to fuck Dylan McKay here in about 20 minutes. It's going to happen. I'm like, damn it. I can't do it anymore. It's like, son of a bitch. Ruined it.
Freaking Elizabeth Berkley showed up like at the last possible minute because, she was too busy showing her tits and ass on Showgirls.
And damn it, could there be any less of a dress for a Saved by the Bell movie than what the hell she was wearing? Like, were you just in the back of the car doing something, Elizabeth? Come on, let's go. It's like, Jesus.
She probably had to run from one set to the other to do her cameo.
It's around the same time, just saying. Jeez. Yeah, that whole wedding, okay, we're going to get off in the weeds too much, but yeah, that whole wedding movie was like, okay, first of all, where was Leslie? Like, she is nowhere to be found. She's just gone, off the face of the earth, never existed, never had Zach's attention whatsoever, like F her or whatever. But everybody else is back. Like, some weird ass shit. Anyway, I'm sorry I got there, but yeah, just
It's all good.
Tiffany's. I think of the haircut. I go, man, that just ruined the whole wedding for me because I'm thinking to myself, where is Dylan McKay? You know, on a drug binge at the car waiting for her ass on the honeymoon. So you know, anyway.
My number 3 movie could have very easily ended up on my Disney list.
Oh yeah,
because even though it is a Touchstone picture, which puts it in the subsidiary market,
right?
There are so many Disney characters,
yes,
that it very easily could have jumped over to the other list. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Goddamn,
Unky
Jeff.
J, why
Goddamn.
are you using a graphic for Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Roger Rabbit's not on the graphic? Because I wanted to stand out, one, because I already used this movie for my summer blockbusters countdown, 2, and I wanted to have a different image.
Right.
And number 3, because I was 99.9% positive that Jeff will have it on his list in a little bit. So again, I wanted a standout image. So, you know. But Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Bob Hoskins, Christopher Lloyd, Charles Fleischer as the voice of the beloved animated rabbit.
Love it.
And cameos galore from animated cartoon history.
Right.
This is still to date the first and only time that the Disney and Looney Tunes family have come together for a theatrical motion picture.
Yep.
I believe they briefly crossed paths in the cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue short, which was made the same year, I believe, 88. But because it was an anti-drug PSA, there wasn't a whole lot of, you know, issues between Looney Tunes and Disney coming together on that one.
Right.
But this one, Warner Brothers explicitly put in the contract that their characters had to have as much screen time as the Disney characters or no deal. That's why when you see Donald, you see Daffy. When you see Mickey, you see Bugs.
Yep. Exactly.
The only character I think from Warner Brothers, if memory serves me correctly, that has a scene of his own is Tweety.
Right. Yep. Tweety's by himself there on the hanging on the lamp pole with Eddie's imminent fall.
Yeah, his
that
pitties.
brings Bugs and Mickey into the scene. So
yes, but Who Framed Roger Rabbit is a classic live-action animated hybrid. The first, I'm going to go ahead and say the first full feature to combine the two. Because Mary Poppins, it was a sequence. Song of the South, it was a sequence at the very end that combined the two. This was the entire motion picture combined the two.
I will disagree with you when we get to my list.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
Number 2 on my list may definitely surprise people.
Well,
especially considering that I am not a huge fan of the lead actor.
Right.
But this is one of the 2 performances that I love him in. Leonardo DiCaprio, Daniel Day-Lewis, Gangs of New York. This film is definitely an endurance test, though.
Yeah.
At 3+ hours. Man. You have to commit, but the minute that you start the film, you get sucked in, man. With Liam Neeson playing Leo's father in the opening sequences. I don't know if you can see clearly or if you can pay attention, but the gentleman standing over Daniel Day-Lewis's shoulder there with kind of the mussy hair and the red tie. Mm-hmm. You see him?
Yes.
Elliot from E.T.
Yeah, it is. You're right. Jeez. That's crazy.
Right? Like, I remember watching this the first time and seeing his name pop up in the credits, and I was like, holy shit.
Like,
he made another film?
Yeah.
I haven't seen this dude since like E.T.
Yeah.
Where has he been?
No kidding.
But he's in here, man, and he's Leo's best friend for a good chunk of the movie until, you know, he turns heel and betrays him and then gets killed as a result of his betrayal. But the drama and the storytelling in this film are superb, as you would expect from a Scorsese film.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And then you add the ever controversial U2 with the Hands That Built New York as the theme song over the end credits, just makes the movie. You know, and the time lapse scene there at the very end where the grave sites of the butcher and Leo just kind of turn into disarray over time as you see New York turn into what New York is now known to be.
Right.
I kid you not, dude. Every time that I sit there and watch this movie, it's like, I want to go there. Yeah. I want to find those graves and get a picture at that spot.
Exactly.
Number one for my subsidiaries should surprise nobody that knows me. It is my favorite motion picture of all time. And I seriously thought about doing this list second just so I could end with it. But I kind of figured, you know, if we're doing Disney live action, I got to end with the Disney live action.
Yeah.
My number one from Hollywood Pictures, 1993, Tombstone. And just look at those four gentlemen right there. Can you say all-stars?
Right.
Just those four. Let's not even get into the supporting cast. Michael Biehn, Powers Booth, Jason Priestley, Dana Delaney, Billy Bob Thornton. Just these four. Michael Rooker is in Tombstone.
Yeah.
But Kurt Russell as Wyatt Earp, Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday, Sam Elliott as Virgil, and Bill Paxton as Morgan. You know, I hate to be an asshole and be like, you know, you're up, follow that, son.
Right.
But anybody that knows me knows my affinity for Tombstone. I mean, I dropped $100 to get to go meet Val Kilmer at the Ontario Improv over here a few years back. And granted, Val Kilmer is not in the best shape of his life.
No.
Physically, he looks fine. He's still in good physical shape. But he sounds like Marlon Brando when he talks now.
Right.
And as such, he tries to limit his speaking to a minimal.
Right,
because it's not Val Kilmer that everyone knows and expects.
Right.
That's why, going back to the Jay and Silent Bob, it was so great to see him pop up in the reboot as Blunt Man, the parody of Batman. So he put a cowl on again, but he's parodying Silent Bob, so he didn't have to talk.
Brilliant stuff. Love it. I love it. All right.
So now that I've wasted almost 45 minutes talking about just the subsidiaries,
right?
The man, the myth, the legend, the owner, operator, CEO of his own channel,
that's right,
the
baby.
Jeff Meacham Network. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Jeff MRF and Meacham. Take it away.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So I did not separate, obviously, which is why I bitched about it. I just did 110, one list of 10. I will say, if I was going to do honorable mentions of the whole Disney library, I pretty much had the whole Disney library as honorable because I love I mean, really, because just the Disney pictures alone, like everything on there is gold. You know, a lot of what you had could be on my honorable mentions because I love every. You introduced me to a good chunk of what you just read off. So, especially Gangs of New York, and I'd never seen Tombstone before I met you, so that was pretty cool to experience that and to get to experience, you know, the Kevin Smith universe through eyes I never used my own self before. And so there's a lot of things on here that I definitely can get with. And like I said, I watched Pulp Fiction because it was part of a film class that I had taken in college. I hadn't seen it before then, which made people go, how have you not seen Pulp Fiction? I just never got around to it. And it's an incredible movie. Surprisingly enough, list or honorable mention, whatever you want to call it, we only share 2 so far. So I think if we go down into your other list here, which is the Disney propers, we actually still only share 2. So there you go.
There we go.
Number 10 for me is very much a multitude of feelings, and it leads into another part of my list later. It's almost like you know this story and you know it's very much a dramatization for moviegoers. But if you know the story behind the story, it's beautiful. Even if you don't know and let yourself get lost in it, it's still a very, very beautiful movie. And it's one of the times that's happened lately where Tom Hanks makes you believe he is who he is in the movie. Him, along with Emma Thompson, in Saving Mr. Banks. I absolutely, people know my affinity for Mary Poppins, and I just love this story behind the story. If you look, let me get the banner out of the way so you can fully see. People that didn't pay attention to the poster or the DVD cover, if you look at their shadows and see who they are at heart, you know how much this movie and this story means to me personally. My love of Mickey the Mouse has long been lampooned by many of you out there, and that's fine. And I love me some Mary Poppins. So the fact that Walt is there and the creator of Mary Poppins this is her story essentially, just makes this one of my favorite things that the Disney live action studio makers have ever made. I love it to pieces.
Me too. You know, this was definitely in contention for my Disney list, but for whatever reasons, it didn't make the cut. But
right,
I just, you praise Tom Hanks in this, and as we should.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But Paul Giamatti's role cannot be understated in this whatsoever. Right? And it's one of the few movies where he's actually a likable character.
He's the person.
Because he's so good at playing a prick that you just want to hate. But he is so warm-hearted and lovable in this film.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those roles where you have to make yourself aware that all is not as it seems. Because the first time I ever saw Paul was in Private Parts, the Howard Stern movie, as Pig Vomit. And I wanted to punch him in that movie, like legitimately hit him with the phone, bam, right upside his stupid head. And that was 20 years ago almost. More than that now. So, yeah, to see him be a good, and from what we've been told, he's an amalgamation of all of her drivers throughout the course of the process. But just to see him be that complete other end of the spectrum of what it was for her, because going to the studio was a soul-sucking chore for her at times, and dealing with the process of Walt and the Shermans and everything else just depleted her every being. And Paul's role, man, that limo driver just centered her. It was so cute, and the fact that he brought her to the premiere, which I thought was damn cute. So very, very, again, I get all misty with that. And like I said, I love Mickey and Mary Poppins so much that just the whole thing is amazing for me. Number 9, I'm surprised didn't make your subsidiary list, although it may be a proper. But either way, I didn't see it on any of your list at all. Considering I know your family's love for the original part 1, whatever you want to call it, very surprised I didn't see you mention Return to Oz. And again, this movie kind of creeps up on you. out of nowhere. First of all, you have, and I'm going to butcher her name, Fairuza Balk.
Very good.
Who years later was not this little girl.
Oh, no.
At all. So when you
just go watch The Craft.
Right? I was going to say, you look back and you go, ooh, ooh, all right. This is definitely not your MGM mom and pop Wizard of Oz tale at all. This is a lot closer to L. Frank Baum's stories. A lot of heat, a lot of nasty shit going on, a lot of stuff that makes you go, did Disney actually make this one? Like, it's like shit. But it's a great movie. I didn't see it in theaters because I wasn't old enough to have a voice to make them take me. The first time I saw it was on KTLA, believe it or not, Channel 5 out here in Los Angeles. And that's back when they weren't having to cut everything because everybody was so goddamn PC. So I saw the full blunt of it, as much as they could show on Channel 5. Rented space in my little head, not gonna lie. Like, yeah, it was something. And it still is something to this day. It's like, whoo. Very, very intense. I would not want to run into any villain in this story in any sort of dark place or alley at all. Just bad. Madame Mombi, I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I'm good on her ever again. But the thing is, you don't see anybody from the original story except Dorothy.
Until the end.
Because people forget that, Dorothy went back to Oz a few times, but she wasn't always, skipping the Big Road, the Scarecrow, Tin Man, and the Lion. There's some dark shit going on when she came back a couple times. So this was a really cool sequel. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I have yet to show him because I don't know if he's a fan of Oz like you and I are, like your family is, like my family kind of is. So,
It was on my list of 20.
Right.
But didn't make the final cut.
Right. Makes sense.
It is so good, like you said. And, little known, Brian Henson was Jack Pumpkinhead.
Yeah.
Who, I don't care what anybody says, was the blueprint for another Jack Pumpkin a few years down the road.
Uh-huh. Very much so.
And I'm sorry, but the TikTok in this is the only TikTok I ever want to have to deal with.
High five. There you go. Very good. Oh, Lord God. Somebody sent me a TikTok video this morning. I forget who it was. Over what was being celebrated that day. And I'm like, I never opened a TikTok. Why? No, I don't want to. So, anyway. Number 8. See, I have trouble describing this one because I have 2 very, very distinct movies that I love start to finish, and both of them heavily involve the President of the United States. Summer blockbuster movie, the show we did, you saw President Whitmore on Independence Day. The greatest presidential speech outside the Gettysburg Address ever. I will die on that hill. Some bitch that thing gets me motivated, man. Every 4th of July, I'm like, yeah! Sons of bitches. But this one, I don't have the name in front of me, so forgive me. This is the entire focal point of the movie is the president. And I was not aware it was a Disney subsidiary property until we were doing research for this show. So I'm very happy to include it. Harrison Ford as the president on Air Force One. And you talk about killer characters. Harrison Ford as the president. Gary Oldman as the Russian, for lack of a better term, bad guy. Glenn Close in 1997 as the vice president. Sit on that for a second. A woman as the vice president 24 years ago. That's pretty bitchin' right there. The president's family on the plane. The freaking mole for the Russian, the sympathizer that kills William H. Macy's character down the line. It's like, man, this is a heavy, heavy cast of awesomeness, and the plot is so good, and you can definitely see it being a thing in real life. It was this movie that really made me want to, at some point in my existence, board one of the Air Force Ones that's retired. I got to do that when Dylan was about a year old. He and Dad and I went to the Reagan Library, and boarded his Air Force One. It was like, wow. Because, I mean, that's where the president stood. And when you think about the fact that I told you guys before that I've met the President Reagan myself back in the day. So to stand where he stood during that 8-year run, it's like, whoa, shit. Very, very cool moment. And this movie was a part of why it was so cool for me. So
yeah, definitely wasn't on my grid for this list whatsoever, unfortunately. But I love the fact that both Han Solo and the Han Solo parody character of Lone Star have been president of the United States.
And that's why you're the co-host, because you got shit like that references that I totally forget about. You're absolutely right. Tremendous. Tremendous. All right. Number 8 for me was number 10. No, number 9 for you. Excuse me. So we're pretty much in the same area with the movie. Again, how much better Con Air is, like you said, Nick Cage at his best, John Malkovich in his awesome villain role, John Cusack as more than a bit player, which is always awesome. I love John Cusack. You did forget to mention one very important figure in my personal history that's in this movie, and it has to do with this little guy right here. Can you see what that is? Yeah. So, I don't know if you know or not, the guy who John Cusack ultimately destroys his car, the agent guy, that's Colm Meaney, who was Chief O'Brien in Star Trek on Next Gen and DS9. So to see mild-mannered, calm, chill Chief O'Brien, except when he's getting, the monthly O'Brien Must Suffer episode on DS9. They actually had that on DS9. Every season there was a O'Brien Must Suffer episode. It was written in the damn thing. You guys are bastards. Anyway, but to see him come out of that role and be this guy, much like Paul Giamatti in Private Parts, where you just want to punch through his face and just tell him to shut the fuck up. Like, stop talking. Yeah. No, stop.
Even though he was on the side of the good guys, when Cusack destroyed his car, you cheered.
Oh, yeah.
Because he got that karma that was coming to him.
Seriously, he was so on about that car from the minute John borrowed it. I'm like, oh, this car's fucked. Sure enough, yes. And just, oh, God, he's such a, he's not evil, he's not bad, he's just an obnoxious son of a bitch, that's all. So, but he's still one of the good guys, so you can still cheer for him, and it's okay. Some of the quotes in this movie are just tremendous. Cyrus, John Malkovich. I despise rapists. For me, you're somewhere between a cockroach and that white stuff that accumulates at the corner of your mouth when you're really thirsty. It's like, damn. He's right, though. Yeah. Garland Green down the line toward the end of the movie. What if I told you Insane was working 50 hours a week in some office for 50 years, at the end of which they tell you to piss off, ending up in some retirement village hoping to die before suffering the dignity of trying to make it to the toilet on time? Wouldn't you consider that insane? It's like, he's not wrong. But the best one, again, comes from Garland, Steve Buscemi. Define irony. A bunch of idiots dancing around on a plane to a song made famous by a band that died in a plane crash.
Yep. Because they're all singing Sweet Home Alabama by Lynyrd Skynyrd.
First time I saw this movie in the theater, by the way, because I was, 13 or whatever, I fell out laughing. I'm like, God damn it.
Same.
As
soon as he said the line, I was Captain America. I understand that reference.
It's like, oh, geez.
And I'm not a Skynyrd fan.
No, I'm not either, really.
I'm just not.
Yeah.
I like Sweet Home Alabama.
Right.
I can deal with Freebird in the proper company because that's like a 25-minute song. But I'm just not a Skynyrd fan. But as soon as I heard him pop off that line, I understood exactly what he was talking about.
I was like, shit. It was too good. And what else? Oh, here you go. So Cyrus talking to the rapist, Johnny 23. Do you fly, Johnny? No. You keep that in mind when you look at her, because if your dick comes out of your pants, you jump off this plane. Yeah! Like, Cyrus is an evil motherfucker, but he even hates the rapist. That's how bad rapists are. Like, dude, you're the ultimate evil. Get the fuck off my plane. And then the final one, when by the way, John Cusack's character is Vince Larkin. That's his name. It's Agent Larkin.
Yes, Larkin.
I couldn't remember until I just saw it. Where you going on my plane, Cyrus? We're going to Disneyland. No, you're not. Oh, no, you're lying, Cyrus. So are you, Vince. Oh, nothing makes me sadder than the agent lost his bladder in the airplane. It's like, he's so crazy, but he just makes you fall out laughing like a dumbass. It's tremendous. Oh,
so good. He played that role so well.
John Malkovich, at least in this generation, I'm talking our kids' generation, so undervalued and underappreciated because they didn't get to see him when he was kicking ass and taking names in the 90s and the early 2000s, man. He was just an awesome guy. I'll tell you what, you want something from him that comes out of nowhere? Reading A Christmas Carol on Saturday Night Live. Or whatever that, not Christmas Carol, Nightmare Before Christmas. Nightmare, wow. Disney dork, Night Before Christmas, the original, the good version. He's reading that on Saturday Night Live to a bunch of kids. It is the funny. He deadpans it, but he freaking just butchers the whole thing. Fantastic stuff. All right, now that I've got my quotes out and we've all almost peed ourselves laughing, let's move right along. Number 8. No, we're 10, 9, 8, 6. Just kidding. Wait a minute. Did I say 10, 9, 8? Yeah. So Connor was 7 for me, not 8. I'm sorry. Number 6 for me is one of those where, and Jay can tell he saw me and realized it in the moment I realized it. When this movie, I realized the movie was up for contention, I'm like, yeah, because I love this movie. And I shouldn't. Because at the end of the day, it's a movie about prostitution and about the dark side of Hollywood and whatever, but these two just warm my heart. Richard Gere and of course Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman. It is my favorite Julia Roberts thing ever. It may be my favorite Richard Gere thing ever, and that's hard because I love me some Chicago, but I just adore that story. Of course, the song "Oh Pretty Woman" is in it, which I can't even. People younger, even older than us, in some respects, don't understand the awesomeness of Roy Orbison. And if you don't, you are undereducated and ignorant, and I feel sorry for you. I really do, because Roy Orbison was an amazing artist, and that song is iconic, without question. And having a whole scene where she basically brings Edward, Richard Gere's character, into these shops, and he puts them in their place for turning her away. And the entire montage of her buying all this stuff and sounding the one store her own self for turning her away. And then the end of the song where it goes, "Oh, pretty woman." She sits down and takes the hat off, like, whew, all the awesomeness of the day. It's like again, it's very romanticized. You're not often going to see somebody pick somebody up Hollywood Boulevard and turn into a fairy tale end of romance. But man, this movie makes a believer out of just about anybody that anything's possible. It's a very wonderful movie. It's the highest ranked romantic comedy ever in my life, ever. I almost put Runaway Bride as honorable mention. As a matter of fact, I will say honorable mention because the two of them together again. And it's also under the umbrella that it needs to be under. So they've both done a lot of things over their careers, but I don't think either one of them was any better than right here.
I can agree with that. The best that I saw Julia after this, in my opinion, was the Ocean Saga, Oceans 11 and 12.
Oh, okay.
And specifically Ocean 12, when she has to pretend to be Julia Roberts.
Right.
And they bump into Bruce Willis, who's playing Bruce Willis, who we all know knows Julia Roberts, and busts out the fact that Tess, her character, is not actually Julia Roberts. Like, anytime a film gets away with and pulls something like that, I always crack up at those scenes.
Seriously, that meta shit's tremendous. Like, you just get off and like it's some weird plane of like, what the fuck? It's great. I love it.
Another prime example of that, it doesn't fall under the umbrella here, so I'll try not to go too long on it, but Romeo Must Die with Aaliyah. there's a scene where she starts storming out and away from Anthony Anderson's character, and he's like, "Get back here with your Aaliyah-looking ass."
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
It's like, I'm done. I'm done.
right? Yeah, just awesome. Love it. Love it. So number 5, I forgot. We do share one. I forgot about that so far. Number 5 for me on my list overall was number 3 on your subsidiary list. Although, like you said, it could go either way because not only did they have so many characters in the movie, it became a thing in the Disney parks, which, to my knowledge, is the only movie or property not made directly by Walt Disney Pictures, other than Star Wars now and Marvel to come, obviously, that was not directly made by Walt Disney Pictures. And of course, I'm talking about the image that you used, or one of us used last month on our blockbuster countdown. Of course, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Jessica still looking cute, not quite as make you want to drop the computer and go do bad things as in your image, but
she's not bad. She's just drawn that way.
Yeah, exactly. But it's, I always find it funny that you don't realize how much you've seen Bob Hoskins till you realize how much you've seen Bob Hoskins. He's in this, he's in Hook, he's in a lot of stuff. As kids, you go, oh yeah, that's right, he was in that. Another underrated guy that unfortunately went too soon. But yeah, just
in my mind and my heart, there is a Bob Hoskins trilogy that I will always remember him for. You listed 2 of them, obviously, Roger Rabbit and Hook. The third one is definitely not a bright spot on his resume, but his role as Mario in the Super Mario Brothers movie, alongside John Leguizamo as Luigi.
Which makes no sense to me because...
I did see that in theaters.
Yeah.
I did see that in theaters because at the time it came out, Mario was everywhere. I was a kid. I enjoyed it for what it was as a kid. Right. Going back and watching it now, anyways, I may end up getting to it one day on Renegades Reviews.
Nope.
But those 3 movies will always be the Bob Hoskins box set for me, if you will.
Right.
You go out in Walmart and places, have like the 3-4 movies of an actor on a DVD collection. That will be the Bob Hoskins collection for me.
There you go.
And if I didn't already own the other 2, it would be the only way I'd buy the Mario movie.
Exactly. Not by mention on purpose. Good Lord. For me, it's funny. This is going to be kind of a weird thing. But when I was my senior year of high school, I had economics spring semester, and our econ teacher would have various names for his bowel movements, shall we say. And the one that he called, there was one he called the spinal tap poopy, because it was a horrible thing to suffer through, but you thanked God when it was over. Spinal tap. Mario movie is very much the spinal tap poopy of Bob Hoskins' career, like by and large.
So is that the equivalent of you taking a Corey Perry and me taking a Jordan Nolan?
Very much so, except that Spinal Tap's longer than a Ducks game, which sucks.
There you go.
Actually, no, I'll tell you that the Ducks games are longer. So, but even still, either one's hard to get through when Corey Perry's on the ice. Although he's in Montreal and doing well now, so whatever. Good for him. Shit stain. So number 4. Number 4 is one of those Disney properties where it will make any list I come up with that has Disney and live action in it, because it is my favorite Christmas movie. Yes, I said what I said. And it is the version of this person which I define and tell and pass on the story to throughout generations. My son, my grandkids will hear it down the line, whatever. Tim Allen in the original, The Santa Claus. Now, I could very easily make the trilogy number 4, and I'd be okay with that, because I think all 3 are awesome. 2 lacks, I will grant you, as we talk about ad nauseum in December, but it's still very good. And 3 just makes up for it in spades. So, but this Santa Claus movie, the first one, where you find out that Santa only can advocate the role, if you will, if he passes on, or as I find out in 3, if he makes a wish and says he doesn't want to be Santa or never was or whatever.
The escape clause.
I love the whole process of how does a 1,000-year-old guy still get around this well? He doesn't. This is why. I love that we have a tangible story, regardless of what your kids believe or don't believe at this point. You know, I still believe, crying out, I'm 38 years old.
44.
However you define it, I love the story this movie gives us, and of course the acting's so good. You've got Tim, you've got Judge Reinhold, who, you know, if Judge Reinhold isn't playing like the main sidekick, he's always a prick. He turns up good here as usual. Judge Reinhold's awesome. And then like everybody in the supporting cast, the actor that plays Bernard in the first 2 movies, people forget was Wednesday's, you know, leading man, if you will, as Family Values. And another classic meme, October 31st, November 1st. Great stuff. Tremendous.
And he also pops up as the best friend of JGL in 10 Things, which I had on my list.
So there you go. So he's got a
we,
great resume.
I was going to say, just remembering that Bernard the Elf went to high school with the Joker and Robin.
There you go. And if you don't understand that reference, please pause this and go watch the movies. Just please go. Just go. Just go. God, the Dark Knight trilogy and 10 Things I Hate About You and the Santa Claus movies. And then you can come back, all right? There, very good. We'll wait for you. All right.
Okay.
Damn you people, educate yourselves. Anyway, and this comes from me, who hasn't watched a damn thing, clearly, because Aaron and JJ have a list for me. So yeah, I'm clearly uneducated myself, but damn y'all, I've seen this stuff. Anyway, at the end of the day, it's a Disney movie, it's a Christmas movie, it's a Tim Allen movie. You checked all my boxes, kids, flat out. Number 3 is the reason I have this shirt on. Now, he and I each have one on our list. I didn't want to be, alert. Yeah, right. I didn't want to be the same because I wanted to give the recognition it deserves. I do feel, for the record, that his choice is the better choice. Let me just say that right now. Although when you really break it down, DX style, no, they're essentially the same movie, more or less. Except that at the beginning of mine, Gordon is a complete and utter prick, like he was at the beginning of Game Chasers, whereas in the beginning of his, he's better at first, and then he becomes a dick again. So for me, number 3 is the original, The Mighty Ducks, and you're asking yourself, why not wear your D5 jersey that we know you have? Because it's 95 degrees outside, kiss my ass. That's why. It's probably hotter now by the time you see it. It's probably 105 now. So
I'm sitting here in my studio baking in this black T-shirt. Right. And I seriously contemplated putting my Fulton Reed jersey, which you can see in the distance of my shot, on for this as well.
Yeah, you actually, now the way I have it hung, you can actually see the sleeves of mine now. It's chilling here. So I put clothes away yesterday. I did laundry and everything. So
and it's funny to put that image back up again real quick.
Okay.
Having just watched, because full disclosure, y'all know we filmed these in advance.
Right.
Having just watched the episode last week where the original Ducks came back, and looking at this image and looking at Fulton Reed there with his head turned sideways up in the top, on top of Connie with next Adam kind of smushed in there next to Bombay's shoulder, and seeing what they all look like now, it's like a total mind F.
See, what's funny is all of the original D5ers in that scene, in that episode, are there, because you got Fulton. You can't really see him very well, but Averman's like coming out of Gordon's ear there, and then Connie and Guy and Banksy. So they're all there, except, and Camus obviously was in D2. So, but yeah, to see them in 1992 and now see them damn near 30 years later, you go.
Yeah. I mean, everybody ages, and we all know this. It's a fact of life. But just having those images fresh in my head.
Yeah.
And seeing that picture again.
Yeah.
Just
it's very funny, when we watch wrestling, we see the people get, older because we watch every week. It happens. With these movies, once you see the movie, like, they're forever that age in your head.
Yeah. Or that character.
Or that character. Yeah. There's no way that Vince LaRusso should be in his 40s. Like, wait, what? No. He's sitting around in the bank. Screw that bullshit. It's like, no, he's not. It's crazy. The Santa Claus, when we were locked down last year, Tim started growing out the beard and put it on Twitter. He's like, getting ready for next month. I'm like, Tim, it's because, but it's like, because he had a pandemic beard. He had a pandemic beard. So it was just funny. It was like, man, but even still, even when they aged him into the white hair, white beard Santa Claus role, he still looked youthful behind the eyes. That was the whole thing. He's 30 years older almost, so you don't see that anymore. It's like,
yeah, you lose that twinkle.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not saying that Tim's lost the twinkle in his eye, because he's still as funny as ever, and he's still, from what I've heard, a decent human being. I haven't talked to him in a long time, but But yeah, and then you get to the next movie, which is my number 2, and when you realize that I'm pretty sure everybody in this picture has passed away, except for the kid that played Pete. So I'm pretty sure the voice of Elliot has passed away. I know Mickey Rooney's gone. I was at his gravesite last year, so I know he's gone. And Helen Reddy just died recently. So, by the way, this is the other movie that goes full-length feature for animation the whole way through. I was going to bitch about you with that, because Elliot's in the whole movie.
I figured you were, but, in full disclosure, we can add this one to my list. Right. I've never seen this all the way through. Oh my goodness!
How it? Okay, we're gonna fix that like soon, because that's on Disney Plus. Damn it! We may have it tonight. But anyway,
Pete's Dragon was always something that was held fonder by my daughter's mom.
Oh, very much so.
Whereas I was more of a Mary Poppins guy.
Right.
And I just never really cared for Elliot.
Right. And either way, they're musicals, so you're not a huge fan to start with. So, yeah.
Well, 95% of Disney movies are musicals. So,
right, true.
Aside from that, you're right. I'm not a big musical fan.
Right.
Which is why it blew your mind last month when I had a musical as an honorable mention.
Yeah, that's still making me go, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to lie.
But, yeah, I do love Mickey Rooney. Don't get me wrong. But I was raised on young Mickey Rooney.
Right.
Boys Town.
Yeah.
And I just missed this chapter of his career.
Right. Absolutely.
I'll remedy it at some point. I'm sure when I do live action Disney movies on Renegades Review.
That's it.
But first I've got to get through the 2 years worth that I've got of the animated classics.
Exactly.
Because I'm only doing 1 month per year. So,
Right.
2021 and 2022 are already slated with those. We're not going to get to live action on Renegades Reviews till 2023 at the earliest.
Right.
And goddamn, it feels weird to talk about 2 years out already. So,
Well, I mean, here on this channel, we're 2 years out anyway, because we're already thinking WrestleMania is going to be here. So I'm already in 2023 mode. Are you kidding me? But yeah, this movie, I love this movie so much, Jay. I never actually owned a copy of it for the longest time. I had, and I think it's still at the other house to this day. I haven't seen it, but I'm pretty sure. On the same VHS recorded off television, back when you recorded something off TV on a actual hard copy VHS, not hit a DVR button, be your lazy ass. I had on the same VHS this, The Wonderful World of Disney, some other movie, I forget what it was now, and the Pee-wee's Playhouse Christmas Special.
There you
on
go.
The same VHS. So
I know that got played a lot by young Mr. Meacham.
Well,
I already know your affinity for the Pee-wee Christmas Special.
Right. And the thing is, they kept it at my aunt's house on purpose. So I wouldn't Pinocchio that shit.
Kind of like how I tried to tell your son that we didn't own Peter Pan and you missed the memo.
You know what? I love Peter Pan too, so shut up. Hey, I love Peter Pan so much. I sat through Return to Neverland more than once. Okay, just saying. That wasn't all that good.
I think for me, and now being older, I can definitely make the difference between. But when I was younger, I always confused Elliot with Figment.
Yes.
And I think that's part of where my desire to not see it came from, because having no frame of reference of Figment and
Right.
Disney World and wondering why the hell this character is such a big deal.
Yeah.
I think that's part of where the disconnect was in that. My only frame of reference for Elliot is the electrical parade.
Right, which is why I have one of the main reasons I love that parade so much is because even though I couldn't meet a live action meet and greet Elliot or Pete or whatever, he was in the parade, man. So when that parade came back, I don't hold back the tears of why it was on my Disney parks list we did back in April, because it was just such a cool moment to see him literally about as close as I am to my TV now, which is not very far. Just like, oh my God, it's the parade. It's Elliot. It was so, and just have my son standing there next to me. See, that's the thing. All those Disney park things, all these Disney movies, they're great. When you get your kids sitting next to you, enjoying it with you, that's where the mental money is, man, because it's just tremendous, which is why, much like his Uncle Jay, Dylan's not a huge musical person at all. So getting him to watch Pete's Dragon is a chore. And surprisingly enough, considering how I don't think I've met one person that does not love my number one, even he has trouble watching this. And of course, I'm referring to the definitive Disney musical movie, Mary Poppins. It is Walt's masterpiece. It is, in my opinion, the reason Walt Disney, the filmmaker, was put on this planet. The animated movies are unbelievably well done. But Walt fought and fought and fought some more. And then he got knocked out. And he got up and he kept fighting for this to be a reality. It took the better part of a decade just to get the rights and then get to filming. And yes, Saving Mr. Banks was very much a dramatization of how everything went down, but it was very much a teeth-pulling struggle for Walt. And what came out of it is the most beautiful movie I have ever seen in my entire life. And Julie Andrews is on point. Dick Van Dyke is at his best Dick Van Dykeness. And then the supporting cast. I mean, goodness sakes. David Tomlinson, Glynis Johns, Elsa Lan. Help me out.
Chester.
I always want to say Cat. People don't. I did not know. Disclosure. I did not know who Elsa was in the grand scheme of movie lore until this guy told me. And I went, shut the F up. And he put it side by side. I went, mother trucker. Oh my God, because you can see it in Katie Anna's face that the bride's still there. It's like, oh shit. Oh, speaking of mindfucks, go back to Pete's Dragon for a second. Dr. Terminus, Pete's Dragon, the main villain in Pete's Dragon, besides the horrible Gogan family that adopted Pete. Doc Terminus is Jim Dale. If you're not familiar with Jim Dale's work as an actor, if you are a fan of a certain British wizard who has 7 major books and a few other side books, Jim Dale is the voice narrator of the Harry Potter audiobooks. And I found that out through your daughter, when she played, she told me, I'm like, no way. She goes, listen to the song. And she played every little piece for me that he and Red Buttons do. And I went, oh my God. Oh my God. And I can't unhear it now. I can't watch Pete's Dragon now without hearing him or listen to the Harry Potter books without the other. Oh God, it's so weird. It's crazy. But yeah, Mary Poppins has arguably the best supporting cast of the Disney live action movies. Every damn person in that movie is talented as hell. Hell, the young girl that plays Jane made a cameo in Mary Poppins Returns later on. So they brought her back into the family, much like they did Dick Van Dyke in the second movie. So such a great series of characters in that movie. Like I said, it's Walt's masterpiece when it comes to live action movies, hands down.
And you give your props to Elsa Lanchester, but I always laugh because you glaze over Reginald Ebenezer Scrooge Owen in my definitive version of A Christmas Carol.
Because I always forget how to say his name, and I have you pick up the pieces because I always forget.
But yeah, Mary Poppins has the Bride of Frankenstein and Ebenezer Scrooge both in supporting roles.
Within a few minutes of each other too. Let's not,
and Katie and Anna's part is done.
Right.
Admiral Boone pops up a couple times, has a little bit more dialogue.
Right.
But Katie and Anna is very much a blink and you miss her cameo.
Very much so, right.
Much like, and just to draw a comparison here, Pamela Voorhees in Mr. Roberts with James Cagney and Henry Fonda.
Yes, which you mentioned on Facebook years ago.
Very much a blink and you miss her appearance, because if I recall, she maybe only has a line of dialogue.
That sounds right.
But she's there, man. The future Pamela Voorhees.
Betsy Palmer, yeah. It's like, oh shit, it's Jason's mom. Yeah.
Watch out, Cagney.
He's right.
I done seen the stuff she can do.
That's right. I done seen this movie already. Run, James, run! I know what's about to go down in this bitch.
Mary Poppins, I'm sure it surprises you that it did not make my list.
Very much so.
It was there, though. It was definitely in heavy contention. But Mary Poppins to me, and I know with what I'm going to say, it's going to be controversial. And if you could reach through the screen and smack me right now, you will. But Mary Poppins over the years has gotten to the point where I almost have to watch it in sessions. Okay. Because it is so slow moving.
Yeah.
And it's not because I don't like long movies. Right. Gangs in New York is over 3 hours, folks.
Right.
But it's just so slowly paced in its storytelling in certain areas. And I find it ironic that you had Mr. Banks as your 10 and Poppins as your 1, bookending your list. Yeah, I actually made the mistake one day of doing that as a double feature.
Oh, no.
Watching Mr. Banks first, the making of, and then following it with Poppins.
Oh, you should have called
me. Now I'm going to say you gain a lot more appreciation for Poppins doing that.
Right.
And if you have it in your heart and your soul to be able to sit through it, I highly recommend doing it at least once in your life. But it's very hard.
Yeah. Very emotional.
1, because of the emotion, and 2, because both stories very much drag in certain points.
Yes.
Saving Mr. Banks, it's a little bit less,
right,
in my opinion, than the drag in the actual Poppins movie.
Right.
But they both have those moments where it's like, probably could have shaved about 10, 15 minutes off of here and been good.
And to think they actually did that. There's a lot of shit that hit the cutting room floor in that movie.
I know.
So,
but I think that's the main reason why Poppins didn't make my list. Is because these days it's just a hard sell for me to sit down and watch it start to finish, especially knowing the backstory as I do now, dramatized or not, for Mr. Banks.
Right. I could definitely appreciate, it's even hard for me to sit through Mary Poppins at this point. So I get it, brother. But with that, we have my number 1 overall list. So I now throw it back this way, trying to punch him in the face for dagging on Poppins. And you went the wrong way, but that's okay. Bad sell. It's okay. With that, Disney proper top 10. Carry on, sir.
All right. So for my top 10 actual films from the Walt Disney Company. Number 10, I'm just going to hit it strong, hard, and fast because, like I said, there were 19, 20 movies I had to choose from on this list. And I feel like I represented some classic and some modern pretty well here.
Oh, yeah.
Number 10 comes from the late 80s, and it stars the comedic genius of a man who only recently came back to acting to do a commercial with one Ryan Reynolds. And I am talking about Rick Moranis, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. This film is such a fun romp through, being shrunk and looking at everyday things in a new perspective, getting that ant's eye view, if you will, that they later used for Bug's Life for Pixar, which then they turned into Bug's Land, and you could kind of get that feel of what the kids were experiencing with everything kind of being so oversized and blown up as they would do in the sequel. But Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, I just think was such a fun film, and the acting was great. The kids were amazing. It spawned 2 sequels, a TV show, and a theme park attraction, which your dad worked on, as we discussed during the attractions show a couple of months ago.
And honestly, if we do this show, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it's on the list. Because I adore this movie. And I adore the sequel. The third one, I could do without.
Not so much.
Yeah, but the first 2 were great. And I honestly, we kind of put food on the table in a lot of ways because of this movie. So, it's definitely a very biased choice for me. And but like I said, we do this show 10, 15 years ago. It's on there for sure.
I really went back and forth between this one and some of the ones that I eliminated from my list, because I will quickly run through some that didn't make the cut afterwards. We don't have images for them, but I will run through a few that I did have on my list and seriously contemplated that very easily could have took this spot. But in the grand scheme of things, in the late 80s for comedy, Rick Moranis was just that wholesome family comedian, much in the vein that you thought Bob Saget was by watching him on Full House. If you've ever seen his stand-up shtick, you know that's not who he is. But Rick Moranis just exuded that personality, both on the screen and in real life, and just made him so endearing, to the point that when he did pack up his acting chops years ago to take care of his kids because of his wife, you really kind of commended him for it.
I say, Rick Moranis is so wholesome and so pure a human being that he left the business and got 0 flack for it. I was very fortunate to meet him while he was still on his run. Disney, couldn't help but at that point. Very, very sweet man. Very, very interesting story of him leaving, and like you said, just now dipping his toes back into that pool of Hollywooddom when he doesn't really have to.
No.
He's good.
I think he wants to.
Yeah.
It's very much a Garth Brooks situation where he stopped touring to take care of his family and be there for his kids and everything.
Right.
And once they got to the age where they could fly the coop and be on their own, he missed it so much that he slowly waded back. First it was the Wynn residency, and then the mega tours ever since. And I very much feel it's a similar story with Rick. and that the kids are now flying the coop. They're self-sufficient, able to be on their own, and I think he misses it.
Yeah.
The late '80s, early '90s were a hell of a run for Rick Moranis.
Right.
Little Shop of Horrors, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Parenthood with Steve Martin, My Blue Heaven with Steve Martin,
And even
Spaceballs.
Even earlier than the late '80s, Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
I'm convinced in my heart that he saw that Ghostbusters remake and went, no, I got to go back and fix this.
And he was such a minor part in Ghostbusters. That's why I sometimes forget that he's in it.
Right.
Because the focus is all on Murray, Aykroyd, Ramis, Hudson, and Weaver.
Right.
That Moranis is almost like an afterthought over there.
Yeah.
But even watching him, I talked in May about Spaceballs. Watching him as Dark Helmet.
So good.
So great. Watching him try to be the bad guy, but he's such a lovable buffoon, is Rick Moranis, that it's like, Darth Vader, evil. Dark Helmet,
no. Put it this way, and I know I mentioned this to you off air as we did the Spaceballs thing on the show. My old Rocky cast leader, Bernie, he did a full-on cosplay of Dark Helmet. I mean, actual size, folks. Yeah. So I have an appreciation for Spaceballs, much more so after hanging out with Bernie as long as I did, because every time if he wasn't doing a Rocky something, he was definitely, that was like his early stepping into his cosplay world, which he inhabits frequently now. He's one of the guys now in cosplay out here anyway, and he rocked at Dark Helmet. I mean, he wore the helmet most of the time, and he usually had the visor down, so it was always funny to watch him try to navigate. But yeah, watching Rick try so hard to be the jerk and the heavy, it's like, nah, Rick, no, I'm not buying it. Like, even your centuries, like, dude, for real, stop. Come on. Shit full of assholes, except Rick's not an asshole. So.
Number 9 on my list is a film that's very near and dear to my heart.
Yes.
A lot of our viewers probably have never heard of it. And I'm not 100% sure it's on Disney Plus, but I highly recommend you guys try to seek it out and see if it is on there. Toby Tyler, or 10 Weeks with the Circus, is the full title of it, but it's most commonly just known as Toby Tyler.
Right.
I just adore this film. For starters, Kevin Corcoran there, the little boy, who was a Mouseketeer. He did some of the serials on the old Mickey Mouse Club, most prominently Moochie of the Little League. He's also going to pop up again a couple times in my list. Best known as, and I'll go ahead and spoiler alert it here, best known as the little boy in Old Yeller. But this film, with its supporting cast of Disney characters, is just such a sweet story. A little boy is kind of being abused by, I want to say it's his aunt and uncle. It's been so long since I've seen it. More so the uncle than the aunt. And the circus comes to town and he runs away. And he ends up joining the circus. And he works with the concessionaire, Mr. Tupper, selling lemonade and everything, and eventually evolves into one of the performers. Sam Treat and Ben Cotter, Gene Sheldon and Henry Calvin. Henry Calvin, of course, was Demetrio Garcia on Zorro.
Oh, wow.
Back in the day. Sam Treat was Bernardo in Zorro, so there's a lot of within the company connections to this film, as Disney did back in the day, because back then they were a legitimate studio. You had your players, and you used your players for every major thing that you did.
For sure.
They were exclusive. It's not like today where today, one person will go do a film for Paramount, and the next film they'll do for Walt Disney, then the next film they'll do for New Line, and they'll just bounce all over the place for whatever has the best script and the best money. Back then, man, when you were a player, you were exclusive to a company.
Oh, yeah.
And this is very much a product of that day and age. And like I said, I just highly recommend it because, our lives have, at least my life, has never been so bad where I've really wanted to buckle down and run away. But we all have those daydreams every now and again of escaping our lives and going off to be an astronaut or a doctor or joining the circus or whatever it is. And this film very much plays up on that, wanting to run off and join the circus.
Very much.
And it's just a cute, adorable film.
It is non-Disney Plus, for the record. It is on Amazon Prime Video. You can rent it for $3.99 or buy it for $14.99.
There you go. I highly recommend you guys renting it.
Yes. And if you like it, buy it, obviously. But,
Yeah.
But everything else on your list, I think, is on, except for number 5, is on Disney Plus at this stage of the game. So,
yeah. Number 8 on my list also features Kevin Corcoran in a bit part. He's not the main focus of this one.
Right.
Keeping with the studio theme, it also features Henry Calvin and Gene Sheldon. The two of them play henchmen to our lead heavy, Barnaby, played by Ray the Scarecrow Bolger. Babes in Toyland, which also stars Annette Funicello, Ed Wynn, a.k.a. the Mad Hatter, Tommy Kirk, a.k.a. the older brother in Old Yeller, and so on and so on.
Ed Wynn, also Uncle Albert in Mary Poppins.
Yes, but I think he's probably the best known for being the Mad Hatter.
Probably.
I take nothing away from him in his role in Mary Poppins, but if you were to put a gun to my head and say name an Ed Wynn role, it would be the Mad Hatter.
Right.
And I feel that's probably what it would be for most people who actually recognize the name Ed Wynn and wasn't like, who is he?
Right, exactly.
But then as soon as you hear his voice, you immediately think it's the Mad Hatter.
Yeah, exactly.
But Babes in Toyland, man, it's one of those Christmas movies, like you had on your list because you had the Santa Claus, the March of the Toys, Toyland. The cast is outstanding.
Yes.
It's so much of a mind F to see Ray Bolger as the villain.
Yeah, that's some weird shit.
When you've grown up with him as the lovable Scarecrow,
right?
If I only had a brain.
Yeah.
And then you see him as this dastardly Barnaby with Gonzago and Rodrigo, Henry Calvin and Gene Sheldon, as his sidekicks, his henchmen. Again, there's such great chemistry between those two that it's no wonder that they showed up together in a number of Disney films.
Right, exactly.
Series.
What's cool is, for me anyway, and again, I haven't seen this one the whole way through either, so what's cool about this is that these soldiers have endured. Mm-hmm. They are regulars in the Christmas parade every single year at Disneyland. And it's like, even if you've never seen it, which I had it the whole way through, a lot of the kids I sit next to on the parade route or talk to as I'm walking through the parks, they don't know what they're from. They're just neat to look at type answers, and they're very visually awesome, but there is a great story behind it that I encourage everybody to go, especially it's on Disney Plus now. There's no reason not to see it at this point. So definitely got to get her done.
It's one of those things where as soon as you hear the trumpets hit for March of the Toys, you know exactly what's coming.
Yep. It's beautiful.
It is. And Annette Funicello, I mean, little Annette from the Mickey Mouse Club, who of course would go on to do the Frankie and Annette movies, the Beach Party movies.
Yes.
I want to say the first one had probably come out around the same time as this one, or it was just after. Just after. But Annette respected Walt so much that she talked to Walt before going and doing those films because she didn't want it to harm the Disney image that she had helped create as an original Mouseketeer.
Right.
Number 7 on my list is action. It's adventure. It's solving riddles, which we all know how fond I am of a certain riddler. This lead actor popped up on my subsidiary list. And aside from Con Air, I would say this is probably his next best role, in my opinion. National Treasure, Nicolas Cage.
And again, we can talk about Face Off too. It's a good movie, not a great movie. Con Air and this are both great.
Yeah. And the second one is great too.
Yeah, very much so.
You know, it very much picked up where this left off. It provided the service it needed to continue the story. Even with the love story part of it kind of having fallen apart in between the two films. But of course, they got it back in the sequel. Jon Voight does a great job as Nick Cage's father in this. This is a great historical treasure hunt. You know, the Templar Knights, the Knights of the Templar, I forget exactly how they said it in the film, but, you know, just the whole mythos that they built and created from history and a little from fiction.
Right.
Just really, really good storytelling, really, really good acting. And like I said, in my opinion, it's Nick Cage's second best role.
Yeah. I still find myself surprised I haven't seen these yet because of my affinity for history, particularly the subject matter in both movies. It's like, how have I not seen a movie about the Declaration of Independence? Like, how is that not a thing? So.
Especially considering, you know, how much you talk to your sister, because she's the one who put me onto these.
I know. And it's one of those things where we always talk about it when I go to visit. And then, you know, as you know, life happens and we can't sit down for 2 hours and do anything because the kids are a thing. So, yeah.
Very much so.
I mean, you got to figure a teenager and a toddler in the house all the time. So, yeah.
Number 6 on my list, you know, you said it yourself when I ran these through to you off camera. It's very much a polarizing film. People either love it or they hate it.
Yeah.
And I just happen to fall into the camp where I love this film to pieces. You know, you want to talk about Mary Poppins as a stellar supporting cast. Dare I say I see you and raise you with this one.
Right, exactly.
Because the Three Musketeers, you may want to take down the DOW logo there real quick
so we can get
a good look of Jimmy King there.
The heavyweight champion of the world.
So you've got Oliver Platt, Jimmy King from Ready to Rumble. You've got Chris O'Donnell, who, let's not even bother getting into all his accolades. I mean,
right.
Robin in the Schumacher Batman movies, you know, which they are what they are, but I don't think anybody ever knocks Chris O'Donnell's Robin performance. They knock the rest of it.
Right.
You know, you've got Charlie Sheen and Kiefer Sutherland, who had such great chemistry in Young Guns that they are back together here. Charlie Sheen, of course, Major League, Hot Shots, Kiefer Sutherland, the credentials speak for themselves there just for those four individuals. Then you want to talk about the supporting cast, and you've got Rebecca De Mornay and Tim Curry, amongst others. Like I said, I see your Mary Poppins and I raise you.
Yeah, fair enough.
And then you add in the theme song for the film, All for Love, by quite possibly the greatest voices of the 70s, 80s, and 90s together. Rod Stewart representing the 70s, Steen representing the 80s, and Bryan Adams representing the 90s. At least the early 90s at that point, because Everything I Do It For You, you could not go anywhere without hearing that song.
No.
So for the three of them to be on the track together, singing the title song for this, it's a Disney property, so I'm going to say it. Magical.
Right.
Magical. Number 5 on my list is another one that's very near and dear to my heart.
Yes.
And, you talk about High School Musical. You talk about The Descendants. You talk about Camp Rock. This is the original, first ever Disney Channel original movie, Tiger Town. And I apologize once again for the image. That literally was the best thing that I could find. I couldn't find one that fit the entire screen.
Right.
Because when I tried to crop it, you pretty much just got the logo and you lose Roy Scheider, and that's just a criminal offense as far as I'm concerned, because as we discussed off camera, there is more to Roy Scheider than Jaws and Sequest.
Right.
This film is proof of it.
He's not in the boat for once. Go with it.
Yeah. Long before Disney made a film about the Angels in the Outfield, which was a remake, I get that, they did Tiger Town, about a washed-up veteran player whose best days were behind him. But this little boy, man, he just believes that they still have it in them to go on and win the championship, to win the World Series. Sparky Anderson, the legitimate Tigers manager at the time, appears as himself.
Nice.
This is just a really fun, but at the same time kind of sad film, because very early on in the film, the young boy loses his father.
Right.
And their thing was always going to the Tiger games.
Oh, man, that's rough.
So he kind of keeps going to the games on his own. He finds ways to sneak into Tiger Stadium, much to the chagrin of his mother,
right.
Who feels like he's just completely obsessed and everything. And it's all because he feels that his favorite player, Billy Young, Roy Scheider, has it in him and just wants to make it happen.
Yep. It's beautiful, man.
It's Disney epitome right there.
Right, exactly.
Like I said, long before there were Angels in the Outfield and Tony Danza and Christopher Lloyd and Joseph Gordon-Levitt, there was Tiger Town. Number 4 on my list, you're going to have to forgive me. It's a 4-4A situation. And, you already know this is coming, and you know why this is coming. And it's because they're essentially very much the same movie with just different properties. Number 4, The Country Bears. Anybody who knows me should not have been surprised that this was going to come here eventually.
Right.
And number 4A, again, anybody that knows me should not be surprised to see them appear on my list. The Muppets, the 2011 sequel slash reboot of the Muppet franchise, the one that introduced the world to Walter. And it, like I said, it's the same movie. Your main character, Barry, Walter, exist in the real world where humans are knowledgeable of their existence. The country bears exist, humans know about them. There's even a scene at a car wash where you see bears like working at the car wash and everything. You know, one of the bears is a counselor, one of them works security on a music video shoot. Like, bears exist in the real world. It's not something that has to be hidden.
Right.
The Muppets exist in the real world. Walter has a brother named Gary, who's a human. You know, the Muppet Show exists within their world. You know, they watch videotapes of the classic Muppet Show and the Muppet movies, and they make a trip to Hollywood to go to the Muppet Studios. So these things exist in the real world. And it's all about the lead character, once again, Barry and Walter, finding their place within those collectives. Both being made to feel very down on themselves. You know, Barry's brother kind of puts him down and constantly is insulting him because of their differences, one being a human, one being a bear. Gary and Walter love each other very much, but Walter's kind of, you know, down on himself because he feels a little bit left out by Gary and Mary's relationship and his brother moving on without him. And it's not until they find their place within those collectives, Barry joining the band, coming up on stage and playing with the Country Bears, getting them together to save Country Bear Hall, Walter getting the Muppets together to do a show at the Muppet Theater to save the Muppet Theater. The villains in both films, Christopher Walken for the Country Bears, and forgive me for forgetting the real name of the guy in the Muppets, but he plays Tex Richmond, both of whom want to destroy said hall and theater. Richmond so that he can dig for oil, and Christopher Walken's character for just because of what the Bears did to him when he was younger.
Chris Cooper.
Thank you. But these are very much the same movie being put on by my two favorite franchises. Like the Muppets and the Country Bears, everybody knows that I love them to pieces. And a lot of people hate on the Country Bears movie and say that it's a lot of hot garbage, but they love the Muppets 2011. I'm like, y'all, it's the same movie.
Yeah.
Seriously.
For
the exact same movie.
For you modern fans, Chris Cooper's best role for y'all out there probably is Norman Osborn in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, the forgotten Spider-Man Paris. There you go.
So, you know, I mean, the songs in both are great. Cameos galore in both.
And I will say this. The Muppets, the movie The Muppets, had you and Ronnie and eventually me on a tangent of, swear to God, Dylan's going to grow up looking like the guy that plays Sheldon on Big Bang Theory. Like, and then what's really funny is they hire the kid to play young Sheldon. And I go, yeah. So, no, like it just like once you see it, you can't unsee it. And
yeah,
you know, it's like both the actor that plays Sheldon, Jim Parsons, and the kid that plays young Sheldon, don't know his name, not important at the moment. they could both be the boy. It's like, oh geez. So yeah, this movie was a mindfuck on its own just because of that scene alone. Jeez. So,
but I mean, I highly implore anybody who did love the Muppets film from 2011 to go back and watch the Country Bears film.
yes.
Because again, it's the same movie, which is something Hollywood is known for these days, freaking rehashing stuff.
Right.
But if for nothing else, watch it for the cameos, man. Christopher Walken plays a great heel.
Yeah, always.
You know, Diedrich Bader and Daryl Chill Mitchell as Hammond Cheats. Give you a minute to catch the pun there.
Yeah.
Elton John playing himself. Queen Latifah. Don Henley and Bonnie Raitt in the bar watching the Bears that are singing voiced by Don Henley and Bonnie Raitt perform the song, with Don Henley commenting that they're better than the Eagles.
Yeah, I heard that. Oh, hell no. You said what, motherfucker? I will kill your bear self.
But it was so tongue-in-cheek, and like you could see he was kind of half chuckling about delivering the line in the first place.
I know. It's like they probably had a good 20 takes. Like, fuck it, just print something. Just move on. Jeez. That's awesome.
Number 3,
yes.
I briefly touched on when I discussed number 9 and number 8.
Oh, God, yeah.
Go ahead, throw it up there. Old
right.
Yeller.
Ugh.
Kevin Corcoran as Little Arliss. Tommy Kirk as his older brother. Fess Davy Crockett Parker as their dad. And that lovable Yeller dog, you know, that unfortunately gets attacked, turns rabid, and has to get taken out behind the old woodshed and put out of its misery. But you just look at an image like that, and you can't help but fall in love with that dog and Little Arliss. It is such a great movie, and as far as classic Disney goes, it's by and far my number one. I know Mary Poppins is your number one, but in my opinion, this is just a little bit better for me.
I can see where that would, feel like the case.
Even though it didn't make my number one slot, because I do have 2 movies that are better in my opinion than this.
Right.
When it comes to classic Disney storytelling, this is my Mary Poppins. This is my definitive.
I feel you.
Number 2 on my list, we're just going to go ahead and say the lead actor has become very polarizing here in recent years because of stuff that's gone on in his personal life. And whether you believe his side or you don't believe his side, we cannot take away the fact that this movie in particular is arguably his defining character at this point. It may not be his greatest movie, but it's definitely his defining character. Johnny Depp, Captain Jack Sparrow, Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. With Jeffrey Rush, Keira Knightley, Orlando Bloom, and the list goes on and on. And I actually had a couple different images of this one that I was trying to choose between, but I went for the one that put Keira in the forefront because this is the movie that made me fall in love with Keira Knightley.
Oh my God, yes.
You know, I had seen her without really knowing I had seen her.
Right.
As Padme's decoy in The Phantom Menace.
Yep.
And I don't remember which was first or if they came at the same time, but I had seen her as Guinevere in the King Arthur retelling that came in the early 2000s.
Right.
But this movie made me fall in love with Keira Knightley.
Very much so.
She is such a good actress. She is so gorgeous in this. As a result of this, I watched her in Domino. I watched her in some of her other films because of how captivating I found her in this.
Seeing her in this made you want to see her filmography, period.
Yes. And if you want to see more of Keira Knightley, there are definitely a couple of films that allow you that glance at her.
Yeah, and I guarantee they ain't in Disney or on Lucasfilm.
No. But The Curse of the Black Pearl is just a great. It's the best in the Pirates franchise.
Oh yeah,
it really is. And I had told Jeff when we were first talking about this that two of my entries were going to be pirate related. This,
right,
and then Dead Men Tell No Tales, the most recent installment. But when I went and made my list, I couldn't in good conscience put that as a thing on my list, even though it had, and we've said this word too many times on the show as it is, so screw it, Paul fucking McCartney. That right there was going to be the reason why it made my list.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Is Keith also in 5?
No.
Okay, I was going to
say
Keith
was unavailable for 5, which is why they got Paul.
I was going to say, if you got Paul and Keith in the same movie, it's the greatest movie of all time. Let's just throw it out. This done.
Keith is in 3 and 4. Paul is in 5.
Okay, got it. Just make sure I got my story straight.
And if I remember correctly, Paul plays an uncle.
Yeah.
To Sparrow.
Yeah, he does.
But Paul McCartney in a jail cell singing a Beatles song. Is there any other reason why it should not make my list? Like, seriously?
Yeah. Is there more meta a thing in Disney than Paul McCartney singing the Beatles song in a pirate outfit in the Pirates of the Caribbean movie? No. Moving on. No. But it's still because this one, I agree with you. They're all good in their own way. 4 can kind of take or leave. I really could. Stranger Tides kind of was what it was. But they all have their own cool moment anyway, regardless. This one is full of the cool moments because it's the establisher. It's the one that tells you, here's where we are, here's why we are where we are, here's where we're going. It is one of the best franchise starters, I think, in cinematic history, let alone Disney. It really jumps off and cooked with gas the whole way through. And when you think about it, like, even back then, people were already making franchises out of movies. Like, it wasn't like, when George did Star Wars and there was a chance there wouldn't be Empire Strikes Back, so he just did everything he could to tell the most awesome story he could in 77. It ended up blowing up like gangbusters, But this one, you knew Disney had a franchise planned, but you wouldn't know it by this first movie. This movie kicks so much ass on its own, start to finish. I'm okay with an ending of Jack, drink up my heart as you hold, and just being done. That's it. I'm good.
Yeah. It's like you knew that the main 4 had signed on for a 3-picture deal.
Right.
So we kind of knew going in that there was going to be more, and it should have ended at the 3rd picture.
Right, because everything was tied up.
The 4th one is very much, I akin it to House Party 4.
Yeah.
It exists, but very few people really acknowledge it exists.
Right.
Even though people that are connected to the main franchise are in it, because House Party 4 has IMX, which was the changed name for Immature, who appear in House Party 3.
Yep.
So there was still that connection to it, much like Jack Sparrow and Jeffrey Rush still kind of had their little parts in the 4th one.
Right.
But it was just bad.
4 was one of those where Orlando and Keira were done. They didn't want to bother with it anymore. And Disney went, but there's more money to be made. Let's do something. Just throw shit together. And that's exactly what they did. They literally threw shit at the wall, and that shit stayed on the wall. And they went with it. And again, I'm not shitting on Johnny or Penelope or anybody else in that movie, but the basic storytelling of On Stranger Tides definitely let the taste of cock out of my mouth. It really did. It was bad. So much so.
And it was so bad.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like, it was so bad that Orlando and Kira had to come back for part 5 to right the ship.
I was gonna say,
like, okay, that doesn't exist. Here
yeah,
we are. We're back.
yeah,
Even though Kira is just a cameo at the end, Orlando is in a decent chunk of it.
right, yeah.
But it's like,
They needed to put the band back together in a hurry, and they did. So good on them. But yeah, the original one, it's so funny. I didn't really get into these movies when they first came out. As far as the first one here in 2003, it wasn't until I met Dylan's mom that I really got hardcore into the movies, because I couldn't help but, and you and I both know that. So, and what's funny is I really wasn't into Johnny like at all before that. I never watched 21 Jump Street. I knew he was in a bunch of movies. I didn't go out of my way to watch his movies. Then I did. And I was like, what have I been doing to myself? Like, not letting me see these tremendous movies he's done over the years. You know, because prior to Pirates, he had a pretty good resume. And he did after Pirates too. Let's not shortchange his career, or just he's Captain Jack Sparrow and that's it. Because that's not who Johnny Depp is.
oh no.
But
he's definitely got a wide filmography of performances that are loved. You got a few that aren't so loved. I'm looking at you, Tonto and the Lone Ranger.
Oh my God. For every time I hear people bitch about Sweeney Todd, I go, Tonto, your argument's invalid. Thank you.
Sweeney Todd put me to sleep.
Did it really? Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Okay. Yeah, I actually, you know me in horror movies and blood and guts, I'm not a fan of that stuff. I think it was because it was Johnny and the audience I was watching it with, and the fact that it was Johnny and Helena Bonham Carter, who I adore both of them now. So it kind of made it all together for me. But
see, I'm not Helena Bonham Carter's biggest fan.
Right.
And I feel like they throw her and Johnny together way too much.
Well, they're both very much Tim's most prolific collaborators, without question. And I'm not saying it's always a bad thing, but too much of anything is never good. So, you know, and I prefer Helena much more as the peripheral. Like, she's the side villain. She's not Voldemort. She's his second. Like, she's not, you know, so and so. She's the sister or whatever. She's kind of there. Johnny, though, again, we're off in the weeds here. We're 2.5 hours in. Who gives a shit? Like you said, Johnny had a very decent, prolific filmography prior to and after these 5 movies. But as you stated, without the original, The Curse of the Black Pearl, it can very easily be summated that Johnny's career may not have gone a whole heck of a lot farther up without the Pirates movies. And
Agreed.
The fact that he is forever immortalized, unless they get too PC again, in these rides. Like, you can actually see Johnny Depp's character and Jeffrey Rush's character in the Pirates of the Caribbean dark ride at Disneyland, which I think is super cool.
Yeah.
So it was even funnier when he took the place of the character, the animatronic, and scared people. That was some funny shit.
I wish I could have been there that day.
Right? Because we were there like within a day or so. That's like, son of a bitch.
You know, you say what you want to say about Johnny Depp and his personal life these days.
Yep.
The man travels to his film sets, whatever film he's making, with his Jack Sparrow costume to go to the local hospitals during downtime, dressed as Jack,
makeup and everything.
Kids up.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, he brings his full makeup kit for Jack and everything. He gets himself completely sparrowed out.
Hashtag not all heroes wear capes.
Thank you. Some wear pirate hats and drink rum, and that's cool with me. Because I'm good with both of those.
Helena Bonham Carter, my favorite role of hers is Fight Club.
Yeah. Yep. And again, also with that, I hadn't seen that till many, 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 many years later, Film as Lit class. Because
I saw it in film class also the first time, and then I got obsessed with it, and I bought it.
Yeah, yeah.
I turned into freaking Fred Durst. You know, I've seen Fight Club about 26 times.
Yeah, it's funny that we have a rule in this house now that we kind of borrow from Fight Club. The first rule in this house: you do not lie in this house. The second rule of this house: you do not lie in this house. So, yeah, it's. But
And
yeah,
number
Johnny.
one on my list.
Yeah, carry on.
Number one on my list, almost 2.5 hours in.
Right.
Shouldn't be a surprise at this point because Jeff referenced it on his list and it hasn't popped up here yet. Number one, D2, The Mighty Ducks.
Quack Attack is back, Jack.
Arguably the greatest in the franchise.
Yes.
You know, oh, but Renegade, it's just a retelling of the first movie. And that's kind of true.
Yeah.
Not gonna argue you on that one, but the stakes are bigger.
Oh yeah.
Stakes are bigger, and the team is better.
Yeah.
There's no Peter, there's no Carp, there's no Tammy and Tommy, there's no Terry to bring the team down. Instead, you've got Julie the Cat Gaffney, Dean Portman, Kenny Wu, Luis Mendoza, and Dwayne Robertson. Plus, you've got Russ Tyler.
And honestly, the stakes are higher for Gordon on a personal level because he was sure he was going to make the NHL, and he got hurt, and he had nowhere to go, and no job lined up other than working in his mentor's skate shop the rest of his days. And to Hans's brothers Jan credit, he looked out for Gordon and called the Goodwill game, Junior Goodwill Games, Hendricks Hockey, and put in a good word. And we find out later that he didn't call him because he would look good in a coach's jacket or because he would be who he became throughout the course of the movie. They called because he was the Minnesota Miracle Man, and he led this ragtag bag of misfits into state championship glory, and was convinced that he could take his country and do the exact same thing. And with that position and winning the gold medal, Gordon got a job as a representative in the offices of the Junior Goodwill Games, which we found out later didn't pan out. If you're watching Game Changers, you know what I'm talking about. So this very much, as the stakes are higher on a global level athletic-wise, they're also very much personal stakes higher, and not just for Gordon.
For everybody.
Charlie realizes who he is in this movie. He is the team captain. It kind of is finally bestowed upon him at the very end of this when he decides to take the jersey off so Banks can come back to play. Adam realizes who he is, that he needs to worry about the important things and not worry about what the scouts and the crowd think of him. And again, Game Changers, we find out how far that went. Fulton made his mark as what he became in that movie, but he took his power and his abilities with strength to the job he's working on in Game Changers now. So everybody, it's funny. They came together as a team in the first one. They really gelled and became a family in this one. And I think the third one, since we don't really talk about the third one much because it's shit upon, the third one is very much like going on a family trip without your father and having to fend for yourself. And some kids did good. Charlie and Fulton did not. So it's this whole three movies is beautiful, and we always gush on these movies, and we're going to till the day we die.
Yep.
And I know I'm over talking your part, and I apologize, but
it's okay.
These things are happening in my head as we're going along here. But this one, like you said, I even said when I did part one, this is the best. Like you said, they're a team in the first one. They're a team on the verge of growing out of their adolescence in the third one. This one, like you said, they become a family. They become a unit at last here. And it takes, they always tell us as parents, it takes a family to raise it takes a village to raise a child. It very much took the village of the kids coming together to make Gordon finally grow up once and for all.
Agreed. So there it is. That is my top 10 films of the official Disney production movies. What do you guys think now that you've sat through almost 2.5 hour endurance test? Another 30 minutes, we're going Gaines, New York link for folks.
Right? We are not the DCEU, we promise.
No, this is better than the DCEU.
Yeah, because it's not 4 hours yet.
But what do you guys think of our lists? Do you think that my two lists have the better films? Do you think that Jeff's one list has the better films? Let us know if you think maybe between the two of us we had the 10 best films and you just kind of got to cherry pick from this list and this list and this list. Let us know over here. Y'all watching the premiere. Let us know in the comments. If you're watching us on demand, down where? Down here.
And it's funny you use that phrase, Uncle Jay, because 2 weeks right here on DADS, not always on wrestling, our wrestling show for the month of July will be something that is very near and dear to my heart, and it always has been and always will be, because as they told us back in the day, when you're NWO for life. We will have our top 10 NWO moments. And the reason I say moments is because match quality, not so good for the most part to the NWO. Let's not kid ourselves. I mean, Hogan as world champion was what it was. But yeah, and again, JJ has full out admitted it's going to be an interesting struggle to get this one aired, because he didn't really become a full-on wrestling fan until it had already splintered into the Wolfpack by then. So he didn't see the greatest of the NWO when it was still the greatest of the NWO. Basically the left side of the screen there when it was those four, and Eric and even Randy and Liz were in that greatness group. He caught the tail end of what was the awesomeness. So it's going to be an interesting show in a couple weeks, how we do.
I'm definitely going to have to do my research, because when I think of the NWO, there are 3 moments that come to my mind. I'm not going to name them because I know 2 of them are going to make my list, so I don't want to complete spoiler alert it.
Right.
But when I think of the NWO, there's 2 moments that immediately come to my mind that are going to be on my list.
Right.
And it's trying to fill the other 8 slots.
Yeah.
That is going to be tricky for me. I mean, I know I can do it.
Right.
I know I can do it. I've always been able to buckle down and do my due diligence and research. I'm probably going to have to be Googling WCW results to try to find segments that I can then maybe try to look up on YouTube or Dailymotion or, the network if they're transferred over there. Fingers crossed, God help us. Doubt it, though.
Right.
Or my NWO DVDs that are back over here, because I do have that 3-disc NWO set.
Which was so good.
It's probably going to be my friend when it comes to this.
Because a lot of those extras are not matches, they're moments. So, that's. And I'm going to say this here and now. And I'm going to be totally honest about this. I don't think you can do an NWO show moments without showing the moments. If they're just moment matches, we can, not have full matches because some of the matches go too long. So I'm going to see if I can get my hands on videos of these moments. And if we have them, I'm going to air them as we're going through. No money, whatever. I don't give a shit, because the NWO is so important to me that I get the message out there to y'all that I really want to. I mean, full disclosure, one of mine is going to be the first ever black and white promo, because that was just so iconic. It's got to be in there somewhere. And I know that's on YouTube and it's on a bunch of other platforms. So we'll definitely be having that. But stuff like that, like the promos and the in-ring segments and the backstage stuff. And, there's so many moments out there that I can, just rattle off. And I know you can't, like you said, because of your fan. But that 3-disc DVD set's going to be your best friend. Tell you what, right now. I have that set. I still watch it sometimes just because, the network is what it is right now, because Peacock is a mucker fother, as Bischoff would say. So I go to the DVDs when I NWO stuff. And usually around this time of year, I'll be watching anyway, because I love the NWO so much, and it's been 25 years.
Yeah.
That week, Bash at the Beach 96 will be 25 years old. So just crazy that we're on the anniversary, the silver anniversary of, I don't know about the greatest, but definitely the most influential faction of all time. So now I know the Horseman DVD said without them there's no NWO or DX, and I agree with that.
I will give NWO the second.
Well, here's why I say. Well, I mean more later, but here's why I say NWO is number one. The Horsemen had tremendous influence in the Crockett territory, in WCW fans, amongst the South and the Southeast. The NWO turned WCW into the number one company in the world, into a global property, and had they not made the colossal mistakes they did over those 2 years, we might be talking about a WCW network on Peacock right now.
And I can concede all that argument with you. I totally hear where you're coming from. But like they said on the Horseman DVD, which you did just touch on, no Horseman, no DX, no NWO, no Evolution. And the Horsemen were the first group to make it cool to be a bad guy.
Okay.
The NWO as heels, being as popular as they were, in my opinion, would not have caught the fire it did had it not been for the cool factor of the Horsemen some 10 years prior.
Makes sense. I get with that. So either way, it's going to be a fun show because, everybody knows my love of the boys. So
dare I say that this upcoming episode of Dad's Not Always on Wrestling will in fact be too sweet.
Oh, can't go any farther than that. Beautiful. He's a renegade. I'm the Meech. We'll see you in 2 weeks right here on the Dad's Not Always on Wrestling.